The alarm ripped through the station before I even opened my eyes. Red light spun across the ceiling of my small room, and a voice from the wall spoke in flat, calm words that did nothing to calm me. Hull breach on Deck 4. All crew report to safety stations. This is not a drill. I fell out of bed, grabbed my boots, and ran. The corridor outside my room was already shaking. A low groan came from somewhere deep in the metal, like the whole station was in pain. Sparks fell from a broken panel above me, and the air smelled sharp, like burnt wire and cold metal. Then a hand closed around my arm. Not one hand, 4. Naira pulled me back just as the wall beside me split open with a hiss of escaping air. She did not say a word. She wrapped all 4 arms around me, pressed me tight against her chest plating, and turned her body so her back faced the widening crack in the hull. For 1 second I felt the pull of the vacuum trying to drag me toward the gap. My ears popped, my eyes burned. Then a thick, clear membrane shot out from somewhere along Naira's shoulder and sealed across the broken section, and the pulling stopped as fast as it had started. I gasped, gripping the plates on her arms, my heart slamming against my ribs. "We are not safe yet," Naira said, her voice steady, almost gentle, as if the ceiling was not still groaning above us. "We need to move to the lower deck. Hold on to me. Do not let go." I did not need to be told twice. We had met 8 months earlier, when the trade station assigned me a roommate from a species called the Kryl. I had expected someone quiet, maybe cold, since everything I had read about the Kryl said they valued distance and discipline above almost everything else. Instead, I got Naira, who insisted every single night on wrapping her arms around me for exactly 4 minutes before letting me go to sleep. At first I thought it was strange. Then I thought it was funny. Now, running through a dying station with fire alarms screaming and sparks falling like rain, I understood that it might be the only reason I was still breathing. We reached the end of the corridor and turned toward the stairwell, but the door was jammed, twisted from the blast that had torn open the hull. Naira did not slow down. She threw her shoulder into it once, twice, and on the third hit the metal groaned, and gave way just enough for us to squeeze through. Behind us, footsteps echoed, heavy and fast, boots hitting metal in a rhythm that did not belong to any of the station crew I knew. "Raiders," Naira said quietly. "Ship class, judging by the boots. They came through the breach." "How do you know that?" I asked, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. "I have read about their kind," she said. "Now move." We dropped down the stairwell 2 levels, the emergency lights flickering weaker with every floor. My lungs burned from the run, and my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Naira never once loosened her grip on my hand, guiding me through the dark like she already knew every turn. On the 3rd level down, a man stumbled out of a side room, coughing, blood on his sleeve. His name was Daniel, one of the engineers who worked near the reactor core. He grabbed the wall to steady himself. "They took the comms array," he said between coughs. "Whoever they are, they knew exactly where to hit us. No signal out. No way to call for help." Naira crouched beside him and pressed 2 fingers gently against his neck, checking something only she seemed to understand. Then she pulled a strip of fabric from her sleeve and wrapped it around the cut on his arm, quick and sure, like she had done it 100 times before. "You will live," she said, "but you cannot fight. Stay behind us." Daniel nodded, gripping the wall, and the 3 of us moved forward together. The lower deck was worse. Smoke curled along the ceiling in thick gray ribbons, and somewhere far off, a metal door screeched as it was forced open. I could hear voices now, low and rough, speaking in a language I did not know, but the tone was clear enough. They were searching, they were close. We ducked into a supply room lined with crates, and Naira eased the door shut behind us, careful not to let it click too loud. The 3 of us stood in near darkness, breathing hard, listening to the footsteps pass just outside the thin wall. I turned to Naira, my voice barely above a whisper. "What do they want?" "Fuel cells," she answered just as quietly. "This station holds enough for a small fleet. They will strip the storage bay, then leave before station security regroups. If we are found before then, they will not be gentle about it." Daniel leaned against a crate, holding his wounded arm close to his chest. "So we hide until they are gone." "We survive until they are gone," Naira corrected. "There is a difference." The footsteps outside grew louder, then stopped right at the door. My whole body went still. I could hear my own pulse in my ears, loud and fast, and for a moment, I was sure the raiders outside could hear it too. Naira moved without a sound, placing herself between us and the door, her 4 arms spread slightly. Ready. She did not look afraid. She looked focused, the way she looked every single night before she reached for me, like this was simply another task to complete correctly. The door handle turned. Then a voice from somewhere down the hallway shouted something sharp, and the footsteps outside our door reversed, hurrying away toward whatever had called them. I let out a breath I did not know I had been holding. "That was close," Daniel whispered. "Too close," Naira said. "We cannot stay here. If they finish loading fuel cells before station defense arrives, they will trigger the release charges to cover their escape. This room, and everything near it, will not survive that." I felt the color drain from my face. "Release charges?" "Small explosive devices," she explained calmly, as if she were describing the weather. "Raiders use them to destroy evidence and slow pursuit. We need to reach the escape pods before that happens." The escape pods were 2 decks below, past the very storage bay the raiders were currently robbing. Going around would take too long. Going through meant walking directly into danger. Naira crouched and drew a rough map on the dusty floor with one claw, showing a maintenance shaft that ran along the side of the storage bay, narrow enough that only one person could move through it at a time, but far enough from the main floor that we might pass unseen. "It will be tight," she said, "and loud in places, since the ventilation fans still run through sections of it, but it is our best chance." Daniel nodded, though his face had gone pale from blood loss. "I can make it," he said, though his voice wavered. We moved. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for my shoulders, hot air pressing down from pipes running along the ceiling. Every few meters a fan blade spun somewhere close, filling the tight space with a low roar that made it impossible to hear anything else. I crawled behind Naira, watching her plated back moving steadily ahead of me, and I tried not to think about how little space there was to turn around if something went wrong. Halfway through, the shaft opened into a small grated section that looked down over the storage bay. I should not have looked, but I did. Below us, at least a dozen armed raiders moved between crates, loading fuel cells onto a hovering platform with practiced speed. 2 of them wore heavier armor and stood near the center, clearly giving orders. My stomach turned at the sight of the weapons strapped across their backs. Naira placed a hand gently on my shoulder, guiding my attention forward again. "Keep moving," she whispered. "Do not stop for them." We crawled on, the grated floor beneath us creaking softly with each movement. My heart pounded so hard I was sure it would give us away, but the fan noise swallowed every small sound we made. Then Daniel's foot slipped. He caught himself before falling, but his boot scraped hard against the metal grate, and the sound cut through even the roar of the fans. Below us, the voices stopped. Naira reacted instantly. She grabbed both of us and pulled us forward through the last stretch of the shaft in one fast motion, shoving us both through the exit hatch just as something struck the grating behind us hard enough to bend it inward. We tumbled out into a narrow hallway, and Naira slammed the hatch shut behind her, wedging a length of pipe through the handle to buy us time. "That will not hold long," she said, already moving again. "We need to run." We ran. The corridor toward the escape pods twisted sharply, and twice we had to duck into side rooms as raiders passed nearby, their voices closer each time. My legs burned, my chest ached, and every step felt like it might be the one where everything fell apart. But Naira never let go of my hand, not once, guiding me through turns I would never have found on my own. Finally, the pod bay came into view, a wide room lined with small emergency capsules built for 2 people each. Only one problem stood between us and safety. 2 raiders stood guard at the entrance, weapons raised, clearly stationed there to stop exactly this kind of escape. Daniel froze at the sight of them, his breathing ragged. "Stay here," Naira whispered, pulling us both behind a support pillar. "I will handle this." Before I could argue, she moved, faster than I had ever seen her move, closing the distance to the guards in seconds. One raider raised his weapon, but Naira was already inside his reach, knocking the weapon aside with one arm, while another arm struck hard against his side. He dropped before he could fire a single shot. The second guard turned, faster this time, but Naira ducked low and swept his legs out from under him, then pressed one knee against his chest to keep him down until he stopped struggling. It was over in less time than it takes to describe. Naira straightened, breathing harder than usual, and waved us forward. "Go," she said. "Now, before more of them come." We ran across the pod bay, Daniel stumbling but staying upright, and reached the nearest capsule. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing 2 seats inside, restraints already extended and ready. "Only 2, I said, my voice cracking. "There are 3 of us. Daniel takes this one," Naira said immediately. "I will find another." "No," I said, grabbing her arm before she could pull away. "We are not splitting up, not after everything." For a moment, her 4 eyes studied me, the way they always did when she was calculating something important. Then she turned to Daniel. "There is a second pod bay near the reactor deck," she said. "If you can reach it alone, take it. If station security arrives before the raiders escape, hold position and wait for rescue. Daniel hesitated only a second before nodding, gripping his wounded arm. "Thank you," he said, looking at both of us. Then he disappeared down a side corridor, moving as fast as his injury allowed. Naira pulled me into the remaining capsule and sealed the door behind us. The restraints locked into place across my shoulders, and small lights along the control panel blinked to life one by one. "This capsule cannot launch until the docking clamp releases manually," she said, already reaching for a panel beside her seat. "I need to override the safety lock from here, which will take time we may not have." Outside the small window, I saw movement. More raiders, drawn by the noise, rushing toward the pod bay entrance, weapons raised. "They found us," I said, panic rising in my chest. Naira's hands moved fast across the panel, sparks flying as she forced wires together that were never meant to touch. "Almost there," she said, her voice tight with effort for the first time since the alarm had first sounded. A shot struck the outer hull of our capsule, and the whole pod shook violently. I gripped the restraints across my chest, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. "Naira," I said, "hold on, please." "Almost," she repeated, and then the panel sparked one final time, and the docking clamp released with a heavy metallic clunk. The capsule shot backward away from the station just as another shot struck the space where we had been floating a second before. Through the window, I watched the pod bay entrance grow smaller, watched the trade station itself shrink into the black, still leaking smoke from a dozen wounds across its hull. We drifted in silence for a long moment, the only sound the soft hum of the capsule's small engine and my own ragged breathing slowly evening out. "Are you hurt?" Naira asked, turning to look at me properly for the first time since the alarm had sounded. I shook my head, though my hands were still trembling. "I do not think so," I said. "What about Daniel?" "The other pod bay launched 2 minutes ago," she said, checking a small display near her seat. "He made it out safely." Relief washed through me so suddenly that I felt tears sting my eyes, though I could not have said whether they came from fear, exhaustion, or simple gratitude, that we were all still alive to feel anything at all. Naira reached over and took my hand again, gently this time, nothing like the desperate grip from earlier. I did not pull away. "You did well tonight," she said, "better than most humans I have read about in similar situations." I let out a shaky laugh. "Is that from your compendium of human behavior?" "No," she said, and something in her voice changed, softer than before. "That is simply what I observed." We drifted in silence for a while after that, the capsule slowly adjusting its course toward the nearest rescue beacon. I thought about the hug rule she had followed every single night since we became roommates, the one I used to think was strange, even a little silly. Tonight, that same instinct, that same insistence on holding on no matter what, had kept me from being pulled into open space through a broken hull. It had guided me through a maintenance shaft in complete darkness. It had never once let go, even when letting go might have been easier for her. "Why do you always hold on so tightly?" I asked quietly. "Even now, when there is nothing chasing us." Naira considered the question for a long moment, her 4 eyes reflecting the soft glow of the capsule's instrument panel. "Where I come from," she said, "holding on to someone is not something we do carelessly. It means something. It means I have decided you are worth protecting, no matter what it costs me." I studied her face. The sharp lines of her features softened slightly in the low light. "And what does it cost you?" I asked. "Everything," she said simply, "which is exactly why I choose to do it anyway." I did not have a clever answer for that. I just tightened my grip on her hand and let the silence settle between us, comfortable this time instead of frightening. Hours later, a rescue ship found our capsule drifting near the beacon, and we were pulled aboard along with several other survivors, including Daniel, who greeted us both with a tired but genuine smile, and a promise to buy us both a proper meal once we reached solid ground again. As the rescue ship carried us away from the wreckage of the trade station, I sat beside Naira in the observation deck, watching the stars slide past the window in silence. She did not reach for me this time. She simply sat close enough that our shoulders touched, steady and calm, as if the last few hours had never happened at all. I leaned my head against her shoulder anyway. Some habits, it turned out, were worth keeping, even after the danger had passed. Not because any book said we needed them to survive, but because some nights, holding on to someone else was simply the truest thing either of us knew how to do.